This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd here again today with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Got another great guest today. Our guest is a mobile home park owner and operator. He's out of New York State, but he's also relocating down south. He's got some other ventures, other businesses, successful businessman. I've had the privilege of spending time in the field with him, something that I don't often get to do with some of my colleagues, friends, clients. But in this case, got to spend some time in the field with Gerard. So please welcome to the show, Gerard O'Sullivan. Gerard, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, man. How are you?
Beautiful day in Kansas City. Hot as heck, but we're making it work. So, I know you. I obviously know you. We've spent some time together, but for the audience that may not, maybe tell us a little bit more about your background, what you've done in your career, and then also how you got into MHP and your views on that.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I guess a little bit about myself. I've been involved with MHPs only for about 2 years, so relatively new to this particular space. Prior to that, I did some investing, both passively and actively, in the multifamily space, which started only about 5 years ago, because early on I became involved in owning my own businesses here in Long Island, New York, where I'm from. I own a couple of retail pet stores, so I've been involved in that space for close to 30 years. And, starting that in my mid-20s, that took up so much of my time. Getting into business when you're like 25 years old, you learn very quickly what you don't know about being a business owner. So I guess the biggest thing I didn't know was the amount of commitment, the amount of time and effort it would take to be a business owner. And we started out with one location, 7 days a week. It's a retail operation. So I had about 10, 12 employees, and being an employer, man, that's a task unto itself.
Right.
And never having, had an employee before, you learn pretty quickly what it takes to manage people's personalities and quirks and stuff. So the business was successful, and with that we had to add more and more employees, and just injected more and more stress and commitment to the business. And after a few years, we grew into a larger location. We added a second location, so now we have 2 stores and probably about 30 employees. And I've kind of worked real hard at it. Like I said, been in it for almost 30 years now. I did take on a business partner to help with the day-to-day operations. That can burn you out real fast when you're in a 7-day-a-week operation and trying to manage 30 employees and customer service and orders and just maintaining the facilities themselves. It's quite a bit. I was wearing a lot of hats, wearing the HR hat, managing every kind of, my air conditioner broke, someone actually ran through the front of one of my stores with their car. So managing insurance claims and who's calling out sick this day, and trying to juggle staff to just to keep the wheels on the bus. So, it's been a grind, but, very blessed. Looking back, I don't have any regrets. It's been a blessing, because we've been successful, quite honestly. We've been successful. And that is a great thing, because it allowed my wife to stay home and raise my family. I have 3 sons. So we were really fortunate in that regard. And I guess kind of, 20 years in, 25 years in, we did a little bit of stuff in the real estate space. We had a couple of small multifamily homes, like a 2-family home here and a 10-unit home right here in Long Island, which my wife and I, we self-managed that for about 4 or 5 years, the 10-unit. And then I was so busy at work. So a lot of that responsibility fell on my wife, Darlene. And she just got to the point where she couldn't take the phone calls anymore. She's like, I don't want to answer that phone anymore. You talked me into this. My neighbor's too loud. This one's parking in my spot. My refrigerator broke. My toy, the whole story, right?
Yeah.
So she just got fed up one day and said, I don't want to do it anymore. So we eventually sold it. But what drove us into that was as you get older and you learn more about business, one of the biggest drivers in our maturity was taxes. We were successful in business, and that was great. But you learn quickly that
yes.
You might be a solo entrepreneur, but you have a partner in your business. And I say this to people all the time, and his name's Uncle Sam. Because
and to say Uncle Sam's not a good partner. He taketh more than he giveth.
He sure does, right? Yeah. So taxes became kind of like my primary driver when I hit maybe like 20 years into the business. So that's about when I started having some serious conversations with my CPA. And I'm like, look, Jeff, you got to help me out here. I'm in New York State, right? So New York State has very high state income taxes as well as the federal income tax. And we were in the highest tax bracket. So now I'm giving like 50% of my income to whether it be the feds or New York State. And I'm like, right. I'm just getting crushed here.
And I'm sure you had a lot of employment taxes. That's another thing people forget about when you have employees. It's like you're paying the other 7.65% of FICA, Social Security, Medicaid. And it's like, and then you're doing the HR and the unemployment stuff and more work and less money. And you're like, I need to buy real estate. I need depreciation, right?
Well, so the conversation went similar to that, but the first thing my CPA did, because he's not really a real estate CPA, he said, well, let's set you and your staff up with a 401k. So we did that, and that enabled us to put a lot of money away, and we had to match obviously for our employees, and that was all a tax write-off. And well, it's all well and good to give money to your employees and create goodwill with your employees and stuff. There's only so much of that at the end of the day that you really want to do as an employer. So I went back and I'm like, all right, so that helped, but what else can I do? So there was another sort of a pension plan. So we had a 401k, then we set up a pension plan. So now I'm putting a ton of money away for myself and my wife, as well as my employees. But I kind of got to the point where I'm like, this really isn't working for me anymore. It's helping, but I don't want to tie up all my investable funds in retirement money because you can't touch that till you're 59 and a half. And I'm still 15 years away from that. So I started just doing a little research on my own, and I had already dabbled in real estate with the multis and the 10 unit that I mentioned and stuff. So I started just looking at podcasts online and got drawn into the multifamily world and said to myself, okay, I'm going to look at real estate as a tax strategy. And that was about 5 years ago, in 2017, right around the time when President Trump passed his Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Right.
Lo and behold, what did he introduce into that, that act?
Bonus depreciation.
Thank you very much. Right. So bonus depreciation was all great. However, in order to truly take advantage of bonus depreciation, because it's considered a passive loss, my wife and I had to sit down and kind of figure out a strategy here. So I could not qualify as a real estate professional because I had a full-time job running 2 retail stores 7 days a week. So we got hooked up with a really intelligent guy that I met in the multifamily space, and he kind of laid it all out for me and said, listen, you need to basically fire your wife from her W-2 job at the pet stores. Yep. At which point we did a few things. One, she got her real estate agent's license here in New York, which doesn't really make you a real estate professional, because the complications of it, you have to be actively involved in the management of the real estate you own. But
can I jump into? I want to highlight this because this is super important stuff, and it's very, very technical. That you have active income as a wage employee, or you have active income in your pet store business. You can take depreciation, even bonus depreciation on real estate. If you invest in one of my mobile home parks, you're an investor, but you're not actively managing my mobile home park. I am. So you're a limited partner, and you can only take depreciation losses from your limited real estate on other passive income, which is not your W-2 or your real estate business. So the key is to be deemed a real estate professional, and thereby you're able to take passive losses or active losses, paper depreciation losses, off of active income. So if your wife becomes a real estate professional and loses $1 million in depreciation and you make $1 million as a business owner, as a married filing jointly, you guys had a net income of zero. So that's for our listeners, that's the basic framework here, but it's very technically complicated as far as qualifying as a real estate professional. So you're right that your wife's going down a path as a realtor that helps, but it's not the whole thing. So I'll let you continue, but I want to, when you throw out technical term real estate professional, I want to make sure the audience knows what that is because it's, we're not giving tax advice here, but we're kind of giving tax brilliance here if they can follow the steps right.
Yeah. And I would advise anybody who's in a situation where they're looking to use depreciation losses in real estate to offset W-2, K-1 investment income, really look into this. This is a really powerful strategy. So 2017, that got implemented. Unfortunately, 2022 was the last year where you can get 100% bonus depreciation because the law kind of sunsets now, but it's still powerful for the next few years because in 2023 it's 80% and then goes down to 60 and whatnot. So it's still a really strong strategy. But like you said, Ferd, you really need to look into the requirements to qualify as a real estate pro. But if you can kind of check all those boxes, and you have to keep a log of all your hours, and if the IRS ever wants to do an audit or an examination, you need to show the log, and you need to have some good backup to show that you're actively involved in the management. And that doesn't, that's not necessarily an easy thing. You can't just say, I went to a real estate seminar one weekend, or I talked to my property manager. I've been advised that those things don't really qualify. Like, you need to be like in the trenches, making decisions, talking to contractors, making arrangements to have work done at your properties, your parks, wherever it may be, visiting your parks on site. Yeah, that's all great.
Take lots of pictures and videos of you looking down the sewer, you in the home. Yeah, I think the term I think you're looking for maybe is materially and actively participate. So it's in reality is we can't have that many of us materially and actively participating on a single project. Now, what you can do is you can aggregate. When I first became a real estate professional, I had numerous LLCs and projects. Like, you can aggregate those activities and say, in the total, I'm a real estate professional. It's like, I have a second job as a lawyer and I have a law firm. I have to monitor and I make sure that 51% of my time is as a real estate professional and 49 or less is as a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And I don't take a salary or W-2 from the law firm. I own the law firm. I have other employees, but I'm a real estate professional who happens to have a side hustle is practicing law. The depreciation over here eliminates the taxable income over here if I do it right. And I watch it like you, because it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. Every year my income is zero. Mm-hmm. Now, at some point, if you sell property, you have depreciation recapture, which is 25%, irrespective of your tax rate. And then you have long-term capital gain, which is 20%. If you're in a certain income threshold, 20 is the highest. And then there's a 3.8% Obamacare tax. But if you're a real estate professional, you get out of that too. So it's like, not to get too political, but the Trump tax cuts help neuter the Obamacare taxes. Win-win. And
it's been a really great thing for my wife and I. We've utilized this strategy now for a couple of years, and plan on continuing to utilize this strategy because, look, I mean, I learned a lot when I started reading about taxes and stuff, and there's some really good books out there. And what I learned is that the tax code created by the IRS is there to incentivize citizens in this country to partake in certain industries, right? And one of the things they want investors like me and you doing is investing in real estate. Why? Because we're providing housing for American citizens.
Right.
Same thing with like gas and oil, right? They encourage investment in gas and oil because they don't want us being dependent on foreign energy. So it's just kind of, it's just kind of the way the
and they want you to employ people. Right. So business owners, you get a lot of tax breaks as well, because you provide, I like you, I provide employment to several people, and and then what do they do with that money? Well, they buy stuff, widgets, tennis shoes, houses, cars, candy canes, all these things that further provide commerce. I'll tell the listeners, I don't remember the exact name of the video, but at some point in the past, Milton Friedman, who was a top economist in the 70s, 80s, 90s, he gives a story about how to build a pencil. And he talks about basically in globalization and all of the different people, products, and countries it takes to build a pencil. And, that same thing, if I hire someone, they spend their money, somebody at the rubber plant is making money. Somebody at the plastic plant is making money. Somebody at the gas station is making money. Somebody at the grocery store is making money. Some farmer is making money because I've provided employment. So I think you're spot on, and that just shows your business acumen that taxes sometimes are the tail that's supposed to wag the dog, because they can be really painful. And who is it that says this? Maybe it's, I don't even remember, you're supposed to pay Uncle Sam what is owed, but you don't have an obligation to pay a penny more. Mm-hmm. So, it's not moral to pay more taxes than you need to. Don't cheat on your taxes. But right. I had a law professor who taught me federal taxation, and he said, "What's the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion?" 10 years in prison.
I was going to say 20 years.
Yeah. So tax avoidance good, tax evasion bad.
Not so good. Right. So I guess let me just take a step back. So back in 2017, when I started saying to myself, I got to start investing in real estate, the first asset class that came up on my radar was multifamily. Sure. So it was fine. We invested passively in about 5 or 6 deals, mostly in the South, right? Whether it be Texas or Florida, Georgia, some good markets. Yeah, I learned kind of that, some sponsors are good and some are not so good. And you kind of have to trust your instincts and do really good diligence on your own. You can't just trust everything that's being fed to you by a sponsor in an offering package and stuff. So we've had some good experiences, some not so good experiences. Then we invested in a couple of deals as tenants in common, where we were more actively involved, which was better, because as a business owner, I like being involved in decision making. I like having access to the books and records. I like having the inside scoop. I don't like being a passive so much, being on the outside and just kind of waiting for that monthly or quarterly update sort of thing. So that's beside the point. After a couple of years of being in the multifamily space and getting some negative K1s, I was like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I'm looking for, right? I can now write off whether a couple of $100,000 or whatnot, depending on the size of the investment and the bonus depreciation. And if you want to talk about cost segregation, I'll let you go down that path. But I learned after being in the multifamily space that while the depreciation on multifamily assets is good, the depreciation on mobile home parks is even better.
Absolutely.
So that kind of opened my eyes. And now I'm saying to myself,
Let me jump in on that. You mentioned cost segregation. So cost segregation is a study. You hire a CPA/engineering firm to basically evaluate the components that you bought, and you cannot depreciate land. Commercial buildings are depreciated in 39 years, residential buildings are 27 and a half years, other property, 3, 5, 7, 15 years. Anything 15 years or life that is real property can be bonus depreciated at 100% on day one. The value of mobile home parks is you got a lot of common area, parking, roads, signage, sometimes utility lines that are servicing tenant-owned homes. Those things have a higher percentage of the purchase price than, say, the building, or in apartments, mostly the building and the land. So as a result, you can depreciate a mobile home park generally 30 to 75% of the purchase price, depending on the components, at day one. Whereas an apartment, it's probably 20 to 45%. So you get almost double the depreciation for the same $100 or $1 million spent. These studies cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. I've got an episode with Yona Weiss, who's done a lot of our cost segregation studies at Madison Specs. So those guys are good, but there's lots of qualified players out there to do it. But to jump back in, cost seg is great. And its utility will be less in the coming years because of the sunsetting timeline of the Trump tax cuts. But it still has some utility for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned Yona, and I've used Yona now twice for the two years we've had plus eggs, and he's great. And I'm sure people who are watching this probably have heard of Yona.
Yeah.
But so once we found out the efficiency of mobile home parks for the for the bonus depreciation, it kind of opened my eyes to the asset class. And it's not easy breaking into a space, right? When you're a new investor, trying to get relationships with brokers, sellers, just any industry professionals. Everyone in the beginning is kind of like, who are you? Where are you from? What have you done? Why should I consider you to buy my mobile home park or my mobile home park portfolio? Or so that was a little bit of a challenge. It took a little while. But, at the end of the day, I'm a business person through and through, and I can talk about financials and financial statements and whatnot, but it took me a while to learn the space. And like I said, I've only been in the mobile home park space now about 2 years, and we currently own 3 mobile home parks, all in Kansas. The first purchase was a 2-park portfolio. We bought from a fairly experienced team of operators. And it was a little bit tricky to kind of get him to agree to sell us the parks. I guess he had a couple of bad experiences where previous potential purchasers kind of backed out last minute, and he was kind of like, I don't know, I just got seller's fatigue. I think I might just kind of pull these parks off the market. And I was like, well, no, come on, let's have a conversation. Give me a chance. I'm not like everybody else. And so we worked through those difficulties, and he ended up selling us the parks. And that first year is a big learning experience, right? You think you know a lot of stuff, but you learn pretty quickly what you don't know. And so we've had some challenges, right, where we've had some bad tenants we had to get out, learning the eviction process, some issues with the town and some zoning things, trying to bring in some homes to fill some vacant lots. Finding homes to fill vacant lots, that's been a real challenge. But at the same point, that's the way you learn any business, right? I mean, there's nothing like experience, right? So you can read all the books, you can watch all the webinars and listen to podcasts till the cows come home. But really, you got to just get in there and do it and learn it. And we're still learning, obviously. I mean, my pet business I'm in for 30 years, and I'm still learning things about that. So I certainly don't claim to know everything there is to know about mobile home parks in 2 years, but I like the space a lot. It's not really terribly complicated. There are certain things that kind of jump up and just kind of grab you because, like, man, I never saw that one coming. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's not really too complicated. You're dealing with people, the residents I'm talking about now, and you have to kind of approach it with a real humanistic approach. I think, like some we're talking about affordable housing here, right? And some people, they have problems. They have difficulties. They might not be able to make their rent. They kind of give you a call and say, hey, can you help me out? So you can kind of approach that in one of two ways. Like one, the real hard way, and say, no, I'm just running a business. I can't help you. And the other way is to kind of say, okay, well, what can I do to give you a hand? Can we work out a payment plan? Can we, can you pay me back over the next 2 or 3 months? So there's just like little things like that. What else? I mean, there's just so many different things. And
tell me about your experience with your most recent purchase where you've got private utilities. That's something that a lot of people know. There's obviously one of the more complicated things in the business, I think, is water. water and sewer. Most of the time sewer is city sewer, so it's not as complicated. Water, if you're sub-metering, it's complicated from a regulatory standpoint, from a billing standpoint, getting the team to transition, getting customers used to paying for something that was free. In your most recent purchase, you had a lagoon and a treatment plant. So there's a professional operator that's obviously crucial to that from a testing perspective. But has that been a learning curve, or is it kind of the system that was in place already just kind of been rolling with the punches?
Yeah. So obviously, you know this park well because this is when we spent some time together. So far, we've been really fortunate that we haven't had any kind of issues with it. But as we got on site that day to kind of look at this, I think we learned a lot. One of your former guests, Phil Merrill, joined us that day.
Yep.
And Phil was great to have on site to talk about the lagoon and the treatment plant. But basically, this park started off with just a lagoon. And, by all rights, everybody says lagoons. Don't buy a park with lagoons, right? They kind of try to scare you away from it. But then at some point, the previous owners, they installed a treatment plant in front of the lagoon, right? So the water basically goes down the sewer lines, through the treatment plant, out the other end of the treatment plant, into the lagoon, and then out the back of the lagoon into the creek where the water just kind of discharges. And what we learned is that we're in Kansas now, so the state of Kansas has regulatory agencies, and we have to have an operator in there on a weekly basis, basically taking water samples, sending those water samples off to the state for readings. And they watch those readings very carefully. I think some of the things that we learned that day, that they look out for things like nitrites, ammonia, phosphorus levels. And so far we've been lucky that we haven't had any issues, but we've only owned this particular park for about 6 months. But on an ongoing basis, we're paying the operator about $1,000 a month to kind of do his thing every month without fail, and then we're also paying another, I want to say $200 to $300 a month just for the testing. The water testing goes off to a lab. So with treatment plants and this sort of a setup with lagoon, it's costing about $1,200-$1,300 a month. Just for the treatment of the wastewater. And then, obviously there's some additional electric expense, to run the treatment plant. But we did learn a lot, on site. We learned that these things typically have a useful life of about 30 years. This particular treatment plant's been there for about 10. So, it wasn't in bad shape, but it certainly has some wear and tear on it. Something we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to in the coming years. Some components of the plant, like the fans and some of the motors and stuff, might need some maintenance, but that hasn't been a real problem. So far, we're blessed that we're doing pretty good with it. Another issue with that particular park was when we got on site, we noticed one of the things that we didn't see from the marketing materials were the roads. The roads at that particular park were in really rough shape.
Right.
And I haven't done anything with them yet, just because the winter's, been ongoing and whatnot. Not to mention that, I've gotten some bids to work on the roads, and just with the price of everything right now, the cost of asphalt is through the roof, and
right.
Shortages and everything else like we're dealing with in this country with, supply chain issues and stuff. I'm kind of thinking right now, do I just try to get through the next few months to see where prices kind of shake out, right? Inflation's crazy. It's affecting every part of everything we all do each and every day of our lives. I don't want to be going in there fixing roads at the point where it's at like the top of the price cycle, right? So I might just try to get through the next 6 months or so and just see how things go. But that, those roads in that park, we got bids anywhere from like $400K to $700K to completely, grind up the roads that were there and just put down a new asphalt set of roads. And it's 103 pad park. So it's a good sized park. Not a monster, but certainly not a little park by any stretch. So that's something we're going to be tackling in the next couple of months. But same business plan with that park. Just try to bring in some homes. We walked the park that day. You and I looked at all the vacant lots. You were giving me some good feedback on the type of homes that could go on each particular lot. So that was helpful. And we're now talking with a few factories in Kansas now as far as bringing in some brand new homes, because it's been almost impossible to find used homes.
It's a tough market, definitely a tough market for used homes. I mean, it's a tough market for new homes too. I mean, new homes, the prices have gone up so much. I've got a couple parts where I'm like, I'm going to lose $15,000 a pop to sell those. And it's like, obviously you get the occupancy. So it's worth more than $15,000 for the occupied pad versus the vacant pad. But my incentive to find used homes is stronger and stronger and stronger right now. But it's not just me, right? It's you, it's everybody. So the pressure is definitely cooking on the used home market. We've been able to find some, and got a couple guys looking for them for me. And one wholesaler sent us several of them. So he's out there finding them. But I talked to a client this morning that said he was asking about my anti-poaching sign that I referenced in some of the podcasts. And he said he's had 5 or 6 homes get poached recently. So like, put the sign in the front and get this lease provision in there, and it's going to help. And it's not bulletproof, but it can save the day, because that's what unfortunately what's happening is poaching is on the rise, because finding homes out in the country is a problem. We just found a double wide out. It's actually near you. It's at your park. This one's in Lawrence, Kansas. It's out into the country, but now I got to find a guy to transport it. First guy took it apart. I got 2 halves sitting there, and I can't get somebody to hook it up and haul it right now, because the guy, my installer, one of my guys, dropped a home on his foot. Smashed every bone from the ankle down, and it's his clutch foot, so he can't drive. So he's like, sorry, I can't get these done for you. I was kind of banged. I had like 12 in the queue for him, and I'm like, crap. So now I own like 12 used homes that are elsewhere, and I'm scrambling trying to get other drivers. And some of them, I got some other drivers, but they won't cross state lines. I'm taking this from Kansas to Missouri, and I got another guy in Illinois, Missouri. It's just become kind of another challenge, in today's environment. Is there's a lot more guys like you who are successful businessmen who have money looking to enter the space than there are the service providers that guys like me and now guys like you need to source homes, transport homes, install homes, manage communities.
Yeah.
So like there's this economics, supply and demand are out of whack because there's so many new owners, but there's not so many new install crews.
Yeah. And the cost of it has just gone up. In the 1 year that I've been involved now, like a year ago, to move a home from, an hour away from Wichita to like northern Kansas or outside Kansas City was like, okay, move it and install it like $6,000, right? Now they're up to like $9,000. It's gone up like that much in a year. And I think it's because of like you're talking about, the demand for their services. There's just not enough guys doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to one mover the other day, and I got 100-day lead time if it doesn't rain.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. Let me just put me on the list.
Yeah. 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 So the alternative to the used homes is going the new route. So I'm talking with Champion Builders down in southern Kansas. And, I was talking to a gal there the other day, and she actually was saying that the lead times now, like if I order some homes now, I could do an order of say 10 homes, which is about what I'm looking to do. And she might be able to have them in my park by like September, October. I'm like, that's not so bad. I was here in like 9-12 months,
Yes. It depends on which plants you get. And then what they've done is they've started stripping some down where they don't have like, hey, we don't have appliances. We're shipping without appliances. We'll give you a credit. Okay. Well, okay, great. Well, now I got to go find an appliance, and that's hard, and I've bought a lot from this one True plant, and they changed the name, the Victory Plus, to, I think, the Celebration. And I was like, what's the difference? It says it's the same size. It's like, well, we couldn't find the joists or the eaves or something in this length. So it's like 2 inches shorter. So it's basically the exact same. It's still a 16 by 76, but it's 2 inches shorter. We couldn't call it the same thing because it's not the same house, but they're like trying to get materials. I talked to Sean at Adventure when I was at the MHI conference, and he said, he was on a panel that Adventures is smaller. They only have one plant. They're like, we're going down to Home Depot to pick up OSB because we can't get it from the factory. Where Champion, Clayton are big enough, they can get some supplies. But Byron, who's head of Champion, made the comment that, I don't remember the number, but something like we shipped 1/4 of the homes that we could have the last year. If we shipped 100,000 last year, we could have sold 400,000, but we couldn't get the parts. And no wonder they're pushing the price. They got to make more margin if they're doing 25% of the volume, but then I can't really absorb 15,000 price increases.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. So it's definitely putting the pressure on used home market.
Yeah. And when I got the pricing from Champion, they had like 3 tiers of pricing. They had a base price, then they had like an inflation price, and then they had like a what if sort of price, right? They had 3 columns. And I was like, walk me through this. What am I looking at here? She's like, well, this is our normal price. This is where we have to be now because of the supply chain and other issues. And then between the time you place your order and the time that we can deliver it, like 5 months from now, if there's another price increase, we might potentially have to charge you that. And I was like, okay, man, oh man. It's like,
it just happened to me. I just had 6 homes roll off April 30th and I ordered them like 3 months ago, and the price increased $1,500 3 times in the time since I ordered them. So I got the same home coming, 6 of them at the same exact home coming off same day, $4,500 more than what I signed on the invoice. And they're like, pay us or don't. We're not going to do that. So okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's $25,000 I didn't budget.
Yeah.
And by the way, the price I signed was $10,000 more than when I paid for the home 18 months ago. So I already was uncomfortable with the price I was paying.
Yeah. Most of the ones I was looking at were kind of priced somewhere in like that 60 to 70,000 range. I mean, that's expensive, but what are you going to do? I mean, trying to work with like 21st Mortgage or some of these other finance companies that could really help in this situation. So that, we're lucky enough to have gotten approved through 21st, and we're going to try to work with them now on this first order. So we'll see how it goes. But again, that's just another part of learning the business, right? Learning the different resources that are out there to help a park owner. Boiling it all down, becoming a mobile home park owner has been a good experience. We have a lot of learning to do, hopefully continue to just grow our portfolio. Like, our model isn't like a syndication model. We don't raise funds from other people. We just kind of utilize our own capital, my wife and I, from our businesses, and utilizing the tax strategy that we already talked about. If we could add 1 or 2 good parks a year, that's all we're looking to do. And we don't have any goals in mind where we have to have 1,000 lots or a certain number of pads or anything. We don't have that. We just want to, buy a couple of good assets, hold them for the next 10 years at least, just kind of, keep the parks in good shape, do regular lot rents, do some infill where we can, raise revenue, raise the NOI, obviously, in value, and possibly refi down the road and just keep reinvesting in it. Because like I mentioned earlier, I have 3 sons, all are in college now. And, I'm not saying that any of them would be interested in running mobile home parks in the future, but you never know, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of have the option out there, leave a little bit of a legacy. Like when they get out, my oldest guy's 21, he's got 1 more year left. So if he gets out and says, hey, Dad, I really like what you're doing, teach me, it'd be very easy for me to kind of hand it off to him and just let him, because, as you kind of alluded to at the very open, we're leaving Long Island and moving to Charleston, South Carolina. So one of the important things that I realized not too long ago, and you and I kind of had a conversation about this in the car the morning we were heading to Topeka, was about, the kind of striking that good balance between work and family, right? Yeah. And honestly, Ferd, that is so important to me anymore, right? I think business is important, right? We all need to earn a living and provide for our families. But at the end of the day, our most valuable resource is our time, right? And the time we spend with our loved ones is so important. And I've been kind of burning the candle now for over 30 years. And there's a point at which you're like, okay, I don't know how much I really want to work anymore. I kind of want to work. I don't want my brain going soft. I like work, but I want to work when I want to work. I want to work 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And and enjoying my time in South Carolina. We're moving to a place that's got horses. You were kind of laughing at me earlier about.
No, I'm not laughing. I've got a horse. I don't ride them very often. It's at my parents' house. My parents live on a horse farm, so I've got one there. But I did ride it when I went home for Easter. So
did you? Yeah. So that's kind of it. We're just trying to add a couple of good assets and work as much as we have to, and kind of just see where this all takes us. But there's no like preset plan. It's just, take it as it comes. And, and hopefully this is where we're going to spend the rest of our time working in this space. I like the space, honestly. I've met some great people. Everybody's very friendly, willing to help. I like it a lot, and I think that if we can just continue down the path we're on right now and find a couple of good parks and just add to our portfolio of parks right now, that's kind of all we're looking to do. And, that's really it. I mean, I don't know. What else you want to chat about?
No, there's lots of good stuff. I think this is great. I mean, you wrap it all up there with, focus. Business is important, but focus on family and balance your time. I mean, you've been successful in business. You show that you can take those skills and the strategies and merge them into the MHP business. MHP business is a new animal for everybody. They don't teach you this stuff, right? I mean, they didn't cover this when I was going through school. It's a on the job, learn as you go, and try to bring your past life with you and try to get smarter all the time. And I think you guys are doing a good job at that. And obviously tax strategy is one I'm a big fan of overall. And I think it's a good time to be in the business, and there's lots of good years ahead.
I hope. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to get good parks right now, right? Prices are expensive. Prices are very expensive, but like everything, it's cyclical, right? Because everything is cyclical. So we'll see. I mean, this crazy interest rate environment, it's going to have some sort of impact on the mobile home park market now going forward. We'll have to see how things go. Financing's been challenging. Cap rates have compressed so much now. All of a sudden, everyone's used to like 4 and 5 caps, and now with rates in the mid 5s almost, it's like, wow, what do we do now? How do we pivot?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that works. I feel like this happened in retail when COVID hit. I was looking to buy some retail, and I was like, sellers had this price in their mind, but then COVID happens. I'm like, well, obviously, if I'm buying retail, it's riskier. My bank says it's riskier. I need more down payment. The tenant's shakier. I need to pay less. So you need to come down. But the seller's like, no, I was told by a broker it's worth this. So there's this gap. And MHP is kind of like that right now, where MHP's been so hot. The values are up, but 70% of the capital stack is debt. If it's up 4.5% to 4.95%, that's 10% increase on the 70% of the capital stack. I can't pay as much as I could have 6 months ago. So it will be interesting. I do think there's a window of time here where there's enough dry powder on the sidelines, or there's enough people who already exited properties at the high value that have 1031 needs, that I think the cap rates will stay low in the short run. I think 6-12 months from now, they probably got to go up at some point if interest rates keep going up, but we'll see.
Yeah. You had mentioned the whole exiting of properties, right? So this year alone, I think we're exiting 4 of our multifamily earlier investments because the tailwinds in the multifamily market, especially in like Dallas and Atlanta and Jacksonville, Florida, where we're exiting our properties, all these sponsors are like, now's a great time to get out, which is great. I mean, we get our capital back, we get a good return on our money, but like you mentioned, we have bonus depreciation recapture and cap gains, and I'm looking for something to help me offset all that.
Right. I mean, you can afford to overpay on the next purchase by 15% because you're about to get hit 25% tax. So, and then if not you, somebody else. So that's where I think that it's still going to fuel low prices. Guys that are doing it after, like if I'm looking to buy something with after tax dollars, I don't have the same motivation with you that's pre-tax and a 1031. You're supposed to pay more than me. Well, and if you're doing that and I'm using after tax dollars, I'm going to be missing out on the next couple of deals. And that's just, the nature of the beast.
Yep.
Have a lot of smart people out there navigating the same tax code
Yep.
and capital placement issues.
Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of where I find myself today, looking at a lot of deals, and hopefully we'll get some in the pot, but I'm sure we will. So we'll see. We'll stay positive, and I'm trying to add something, like I said, before the end of the year. So that's kind of where we're at.
All right, Gerard. Well, this is great stuff. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your insights. Nice to connect with you again and get some time to chat. Where can people find you or reach out to you if they want to after the show?
If anybody wants to give me a call, my cell is 516-445-2947. We also have a website. So the name of my company is called Spindrift Capital Partners. So you can reach me on my at my website at www.spindriftcapitalpartners or gerard@spindriftcapitalpartners.com.
All right.
Happy to talk. If anyone has any questions about anything we chatted about, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Thanks, Gerard. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ferd. Talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.